let everybody come in. There's also the option to send messages through the chat. Just make sure that you tick the option that goes to everybody, so everyone can see them if you have questions. And we will try and take some questions at the end as well. So we'll start in the next couple of minutes. You can see quite a lot of people coming in. I've just seen someone ask about this being available to watch later. We are recording it. So fingers crossed all goes well with that. I have the fear, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It should be available to watch later as well. So why don't we kick off by introducing everybody. I will let you guys introduce yourself because you will do it undoubtedly better than I will. So I'm Zoe, I'm the social media editor of Hitched, and I'm hosting this webinar about the future of the wedding industry. And I'm going to hop over, I'll just work clockwise around my screen to Sarah next to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm Sarah Allard and I'm editor at Hitched. So yeah, very much looking forward to today. We were just saying it's such a nice change to be talking about things that aren't COVID related and the actual future of weddings. So yeah, very excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely for us. I mean, Sarah, Nina and I have spent a lot of time on Zooms talking about guidance. And this time we actually get to talk about celebrations, which is lovely. Ashley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, my name's Ashley Lee and I'm the founder of Pink Palms, which is a London-based wedding design studio. We plan and design weddings for modern couples. Most people know my work through being quite colourful and kind of personality infused, and I've had the pleasure of working with Hitched on quite a few articles in the last year or so in terms of trends and where the industry's going and where the couples are finding their inspiration from within the wedding industry but also without. So that's me.
Thank you. Rahita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Rowita Pabla and I run Rowita Pabla Wedding and Events. I am the founder. We create luxury Asian weddings and we are based in London.
Thank you. And last but not least, Nina.
Hi, my name's Nina Beer and I run Occasion Queens. We specialise in on-the-day coordination only. We don't do full wedding planning or anything along those lines, no styling. I leave that to these lovely ladies here. But we just come in on the day and execute whatever the couple have planned. As well as that, obviously worked closely on everything COVID, hence our many Zooms and lives on guidance and everything else. So yeah, the way that COVID has impacted weddings and the future of weddings is very much something that is very close to our hearts, I think it's safe to say, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And it is so nice to be talking. We've come through the other side and we're talking about the future, and it's a future that we can already see starting to happen. So weddings are obviously taking place right now. I'm sure everybody has had a really, really busy past few weeks. I mean, we know that the first weekend of September was the busiest of the year for weddings. It sort of stole that away from August. That's right, Sarah?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, traditionally it's been August, but obviously with things being so delayed this year, it was pushed into September, which was, yeah, the busiest time. So really nice to see so many weddings taking place in September for sure.
I know it will be interesting to hear from you guys and the attendees today as well about how it's looking for you, because I know on Hitched over the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of increases. Things are picking up rapidly, aren't they?
Yeah, massively. It's just got so busy. I mean, we were so busy during COVID, obviously giving advice and ideas and kind of, giving couples really like logistical ideas of how they could either postpone if they were looking to postpone, or how they could still get married if they wanted to have like a smaller wedding. But yeah, now we're obviously seeing those weddings happen again, which is amazing. So we've kind of gone back to that more planning and advice and inspiration, which is really exciting. But yeah, it's just getting very busy.
And obviously we know last year was a very difficult time, but I mean, just as an example of how things are really ramping up for us, in August, we had our highest number of signups to Hitched, didn't we, for couples, like 48% increase year over year, I think it was, which just goes to show people they're back, aren't they? They're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had 35,000 leads for weddings this year, and just in the last 2 months, I think. So yeah, there's a lot of couples that are now actively planning. They're not just kind of thinking about, okay, how can I move forward during COVID? They're now like, right, they're really cracking on with their planning. They're looking for their venues, they're looking for their suppliers. So yeah, so it's really exciting to see that happening now.
And how is that looking for you guys as well? Nina, obviously you're on the day. So how are your weeks looking? How busy are you?
I'm a bit busy. I think that if you speak to anyone in the wedding industry right now, we're all very much kind of at max capacity still, and it's hard work, right? We're all a little bit tired. And we're all looking forward to things kind of slowly calming down towards the end of the year and beginning of next. But what I am definitely seeing is, as Sarah said, inquiries are coming through thick and fast now for next year. I think confidence has definitely built, as we can see that there is nothing happening over the winter in terms of restrictions at the moment. Then I think people have got that confidence to carry on planning. And also I think what they're doing is now starting to look into the other aspects of their wedding. So whereas before they got the big stuff done, they got the date, they got the venue sorted, now they're happy to start investing in some of the smaller things that they were thinking about but weren't too sure whether to go there yet.
And Rahita, what about you? You touched on just before the call that it's slightly different for kind of Asian and cultural weddings. How is winter and sort of next year looking for you?
Within the Asian market, we've tended not to have winter weddings. I'm not too sure why, but we've always kind of had a stop on like October time, and then we start up again in May. What I have found this year is that they are filtering through to the end of October and beginning of November. And I think that's just because people just want to get married now. And that is the key line that they say on the phone to me as soon as we start talking. You know, they've been waiting around, or it might not be that they've been waiting around, but they've actually just got engaged. They're also not sure what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So they just decided to take the leap and then do it this year as well. But, you know, as Nina says, inquiries are coming through thick and fast for next year, because I think people are getting the confidence. And definitely what you mentioned as well, in terms of they are looking at the little things, where before it was just the caterer and the venue, where now, you know, thankfully, they are happy to book entertainment and they are happy to book their DJs. And I think that's a breath of fresh air for those suppliers as well.
And I think this is something, Sarah, you might be able to comment on. We looked at planxiety, people getting nervous that the suppliers they want might be booked up.
Yeah, I mean, there's just wedding planning is obviously an incredibly stressful time anyway. So you've got all these different pressures that are mounting up. You know, you want to make sure you've got your right venue, you've got your suppliers all kind of, you know, ticked off. And there's just so many pressures. And I think the added pressure now of having missed out on over a year of weddings. So couples are now faced with this competition effectively with other couples that, you know, we're always planning to get married this year or next year. So you've got, you know, this mounting kind of demand. So yeah, I mean, it's great for the venues and the suppliers, because obviously there should be that demand there, but it's been quite stressful for couples, I think, to plan. I think they're finding they have to plan a lot quicker. And really kind of nail down that dream team that they've always had in their mind of people that they want to have, like, you know, to host their wedding for them. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stress, I think, on couples' parts at the moment.
And Ashley, how has it been looking for you as well? What's 2022 looking like for you?
Busy again, same as everybody else. Yeah, inquiries are flying through thick and fast. And I think the one thing we all have experienced this year, which has kind of contributed to us feeling really busy right now, is that the couples actually, they really wanted to sit it out and wait as long as possible to actually confirm and kind of make sure that everything was going ahead. Because obviously we've kind of had a really long lockdown at the beginning of this year. So this year's weddings have been really last minute, and that's contributed to us all kind of feeling overwhelmed and feeling really busy right now, because if we knew it was going to go ahead, the weddings we've worked on, we could have kind of planned for that a little bit earlier in the beginning of the year. But next year, I agree, I've got a bride in June who is planning minute by minute timelines already. Everybody's booked, kind of, yeah. So it's I think they've got the enjoyment back as well, which is really lovely. Kind of, it's kind of pre-pandemic excitement about it, and kind of and really kind of going to town on their weddings as well. Whereas this year, same as what Rahita said, that a lot of my couples, they just wanted to get married, felt kind of they had been stuck for a really long period of time. So
actually, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I've experienced, you know, a social media editor pitched, a lot of people talk directly to me, and so many over the past few months have said to me, how can I feel excited again? And it's good to hear that couples are starting to feel excited again, because it always breaks my heart when people say that to me.
Yeah, I think that was one of the hardest things, wasn't it, throughout? It was, you know, we were in an amazingly positive and lovely industry that we're so lucky to work in, and generally it's a really positive, everyone's feeling really positive and excited, and that's been really hard for us to hear how many couples and venues and suppliers as well. It's just been such a stressful time, and it's a time when people should be celebrating and enjoying every moment of that planning. So to have that taken away is really, really sad, and that's very difficult to hear, really. So I think, yeah, we've obviously tried our best to keep everybody, you know, feeling positive, but yeah, it's nice to be coming out the other end of that for sure.
Yeah, like probably 60% of my job is like squealing about people's wedding plans, even though I don't know them. You know, I'm just getting excited for them. So it's so nice to be able to do that again. And I know you've talked about people just wanting to get married this year and then celebrations ramping up next year. Have any of you seen a trend for, or are being inquired about celebrations next year? So, I mean, we were calling them anniceptions at Hitched, you know, the kind of big party on the wedding anniversary. Have you guys been involved in any of those? Who wants to jump in on that one?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. One of the things that quite a few of my couples, I tend to have a niche for American couples who are getting married in the UK, and so because they couldn't travel last year, a lot, and it's the same as anybody who had a legal ceremony or a micro wedding last year. A lot of couples are legally married, but they're still holding out for their big kind of reception, and it's really difficult to. It really varies on how they want that to feel. Some people want it to feel like a wedding. Other people don't want it to feel like a wedding at all, because to them, they're already married. So they're confused about what that reception is going to feel like. And it's been kind of an interesting journey to help guide each couple, I think, on how different that will feel. Some couple just want pure entertainment and want it to feel like a party. Others want to include people like grandparents and important family members and friends who couldn't make it. So those kind of celebrations are going to be new for us all, I think.
Are you involved in one of those, Nina?
Yeah, I've got quite a few of these next year. I'm really looking forward to them. So some of them have gone, like, as Ashley said, they're all individual, which is really nice. There's no kind of set pattern to them. I've got some that are just going for like an evening reception, nothing really during the day. And I've got a couple that are doing, like, I'm trying to encourage them to do this as well, is like a big cinema screening of their wedding video, things like that. So I'm really making it like a cinema. So yeah, I'm very excited actually about kind of how these are all going to evolve. And I've even got I've got one this year. They got married at the beginning of this year, and then they're having their big party on their original date this year. So it's all like, yeah, not even waiting for the anniversary. Let's just have a big party.
Well, any excuse for a big party, I say. And Rahita, how about in kind of Asian and cultural celebrations? Are you seeing that? Are people interested in having kind of a post-wedding celebration?
Oh, we have a bit of a niche where a lot of American clients come to us for Asian weddings, and we had a huge one that was supposed to be in August, but again, they wanted their grandparents to be there. So what they actually did is they did their nikah over in New York, but they are still going to fly everybody over here in next August to do a party as such. So a party on one day, and then in essence, the second day is actually going to be just a meal, basically, with a band, and there isn't going to be any kind of ceremony. But again, it's just that celebration of everybody coming together, and definitely seeing the trend of, like, I think what a lot of couples I have been working with, they've realised that they don't want to downgrade. They don't want to spend less, but what they want to do is they want to have it unique to them and kind of do it a little bit more different. So I think, you know, we have a really cool one next year where, you know, it is for 250 people. We are going to have the Indian wedding. We're going to give everybody a sit down Indian meal to bring the reception dinner forward, but then all the elders and about half that guest number gets cut. And then in the evening, it's just going to be a party and street food and a band, and that's, you know, they're looking at different things, and I think they've had a bit of time to look at different things about what people are doing as well. So definitely seeing the shift, especially from the Asian side, that instead of having the traditional Indian wedding followed by a break and then a reception, they're splitting it over 2 days and maybe like reducing the number for the party for the evening.
Okay, and I think it's fair to say this past year has, well, past 2 years, has taught us all that we should celebrate more. Like, that was the thing that everybody missed the most, I think, those chances to celebrate. And it's great. I think it's so great to see that people are actively looking to find reasons to celebrate, and to celebrate more than once, because why not? You know, it's so important. And we've learned as well that we are actually capable and resilient, and can deal with more than we ever thought we might ever have to deal with. And going off that point, did any of you have to really strongly adapt your business offering during COVID? And if so, have any of those kind of adaptations stayed in place now? Have you changed your business in any way?
Ashley, you need to talk about this one.
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of did quite a serious COVID pivot during last year. So I set up an online membership called Bungalow for couples to join, to effectively, because I think what we all noticed, right, is that there are couples who can choose to work with Rohita, Nina and I, but not every couple will. We're kind of not at the stage where they are in the US or some other countries where kind of we're not like a photographer, we're that's a necessity, we're a nice to have for a lot of couples. And last year, every couple needed guidance and needed help, and there was lots of help available from so many places like Hitched, and lots of advice and that kind of thing. But I saw my role, or what I could offer them, as kind of giving them the excitement back and the creativity, and ready to get designing their weddings and kind of getting things in order, even though we didn't know when it was happening. There's still things that could happen. So it's an online membership. We built a digital platform which houses lots of online workshops from experts from a whole range of within the wedding industry, but also outside, to help couples plan and design their weddings. So yes, it's still going. It's strange to set up something within a pandemic and then see what life, like as we come out of it, how that business has to adapt. It's had to adapt again. So although it was built in the pandemic, I've had to change it as the restrictions ease, because life is coming back for us, right? So it's we've changed kind of the sales model of it. But yeah, it's still going, and our couples are absolutely loving it. I'm so swamped with bungalow wedding photos. I haven't had a chance to share any of them yet, but yeah, it's been a wild ride. And I think something online and not kind of a one-to-one high ticket service was probably the right option in a pandemic, for sure.
Okay, and Nina and Rohita, did you have to make any big changes? And are there any changes you kind of kept in place?
Nina, do you want to go?
You go for it.
Yeah, so we actually set up something called the Brides Club by Rohita Pabla. Like Ashley said, I always found previously to COVID, and it was actually already in the pipeline, but I think, guess what happened with COVID? It helped everybody step out of their comfort zone just to get it out there. So I always was finding that people were coming to me, and again, we are a luxury ticket item. I think over the past couple of years, I think we've actually become more of a necessity, and I think COVID has actually made couples realize actually having a planner or an on-the-day coordinator can really help drive the wedding in the right way. And I think a lot of my couples were very thankful because they actually came out on the better side of it because of the business relationship I had with their suppliers. So in terms of like deposits. So going back to when the pandemic hit, we kind of knew there was that little niche already there, that so many people said to me, I really want to work with you, Rohita, but just can't afford you. And it was, and they were honest about it. So we set up, again, like Ashley, an online membership, which was called the Brides Club. And what it entailed was basically building a community for brides only, where they can kind of come together and share ideas and conversations. And again, it was especially leaned against the Asian culture. So what changes you have to make potentially, and going into a new family. So we kind of covered health, beauty and lifestyle at the same time. So we had masterclasses with fitness coaches, stylists as well, because again, you know, girls needed help of what to wear when they were going to their Asian functions after they'd got married. And then we did like cooking, and we covered quite a lot of lifestyle topics, but I kind of based it on myself because I've been married for like 7 years, and I understand the journey of having to fit into family and, you know, understanding the different cultural aspects. So we built the Brides Club, so they got like a masterclass every month, but it was a monthly membership, and the girls really did like it because again, they had other people that they could really connect with that was going through the same things. And especially when you are dealing with family members that said that they won't go ahead because they wanted the large numbers, where they, you know, a lot of the brides group, they just wanted to go ahead, even if it was 70 people or 50 people, but that's quite a hard conversation to have in our culture, to downgrade. So yeah, it was really successful. But I think, like you said, a lot of people going back to normality, they're not obviously at home. So where we've decided to pivot it, it's still going to be part of the brand. So, you know, if they are with me anyway, they automatically go into the club. And if they inquire, but they decide that they just want to go for on-the-day coordination, they can add on the Brides Club and still be part of that and get all the workbooks that are involved with it as well.
And Nina, what about you? Aside from being total guidance guru?
I'm love. Yeah, no, unfortunately, I was too busy writing guidelines. No, I think obviously at the start, started Plan to Postpone actually along with Ashley, which was there just as a Facebook group for brides and grooms who were postponing their wedding. And we realised that no one really knew how to postpone a wedding. We never really come across this. No one knew what to do, when to contact suppliers, you know, how to reduce their guest numbers. Like, how do you even do that? It was a whole new concept. So just very early on, giving a lot of guidance to people on postponing a wedding and how to postpone and what to do. And then obviously with the work with the UK Weddings Task Force, that kind of took over. So any functioning kind of pivot that made any money just went to the bottom of the pile. So I'm probably not best to answer that one.
But, you know, you spent your time on a very, very worthwhile cause, and I think we all owe you a huge amount for that. I'm gonna pivot now from talking about the past. So let's talk about the future, wedding trends. And I know on Hitched we did a huge piece on wedding trends recently. So I'll probably ask Sarah to give us a bit of an overview of what trends we've kind of expected to see over the next year.
I think generally, I mean, there's lots of like little things that we've kind of noticed, but I think just a kind of an overarching feeling that I don't know if you guys would agree, but it's just a more casual and laid back approach. I think that people coming through the pandemic have realised that actually they've been able to really refocus on what's important to them and what's important to their wedding day. And actually, this particular tradition isn't important. You know, I don't want to cut a cake, or, you know, I don't want to have a formal sit down meal. I actually, you know, as a couple, we're very relaxed. We love street food. Why aren't we doing that? And it's been, I think generally that's been the sort of overarching trend that we've noticed, is a much more casual approach, and just really thinking about what's unique to that couple and what's really important to them and what they want to share with their guests. And we've seen people, you know, they've taken that opportunity to reduce their guest list, and actually they've preferred to reduce it. And it's been quite a nice thing for them to be like, okay, actually, I only really did want a small wedding. And I just felt this pressure that I had to have a big wedding, but now I'm really pleased that I can have a micro wedding. And whether they want to say it's because of COVID or not, you know, that's been quite nice for them. So yeah, so we've seen a massive increase in searches to more casual dresses, maybe like two-piece dresses as well, even bridal suits. I think, you know, with the rise of micro weddings and more maybe city weddings, I think people are really going for that kind of tailored suit look, which I absolutely love. It's such a cool look. So yeah, we've seen a lot more traffic to that kind of content. Outdoor weddings as well, obviously that's going to be massive for next year. I think you know, it started off as a necessity. We were encouraged to be outdoors more, and I think people have been like, okay, well, actually, you know, I love the idea of having an outdoor wedding now. So I think that's something that we can definitely expect to see next year. Probably the most fun one, which is one we've been talking about a lot here, is the Bridgerton inspired weddings, which has been really cool to see. I mean, we've got season 2 coming soon, so I think that's been quite a fun one that we've seen impacting trends. So yeah, the more sort of Regency inspired days, which will be really cool to see. So yeah, so I think, you know, there's lots of other little ones, but I think, yeah, that kind of approach of thinking about what's really unique to the couple and what they love, and kind of carrying that throughout their day, and those really unique touches and ways that they can just make their guests feel special and important. You know, we've been through this crazy time, we've not seen family and friends, so, you know, maybe reallocating some of that budget to guest enjoyment as well has been something that we've seen, which has been really nice.
And I'm going to hop over to Ashley for this one, because you mentioned that you have quite a lot of American couples. Bridgerton, is that a trend that you're seeing creep in? I know there are a big audience for Bridgerton fans in America.
There, yeah, I mean, anything British, they are there. You know, they think we all know the Queen and we can like pop round for tea. But I wouldn't say not necessarily. I think American couples really struggle when they're planning for UK-based weddings. I think they struggle to have something that feels a little bit more modern. If you think about the kind of US style weddings, there's a whole range of weddings on option, and I think here they feel a little bit stuck. So some people are definitely inspired by Bridgerton and they want the stately home, and I've definitely got one of those next year, but for the most part they're trying to do something yeah, a little bit more them, just as like Sarah was saying. I think weddings are such a, like, we're 2021 and people are still copying the same blueprint of how the wedding day should go and what color everything should be. Everything's got, you know, the whole idea that everything's still got to be white is a little bit outdated, I think. And I had a couple, well, not a little bit, it's very outdated. And I had a couple of weeks ago that one of the things they did, their wedding was very colourful, and they that was the way that they wanted it. But the big thing for them was they didn't want to walk down the aisle like without each other. So they got ready together, they left in the hotel together, they arrived at the ceremony together, and then they walked down the aisle together. And the idea to them that not doing that together was really alien. And I think COVID, as much as it really kind of it just kind of stopped the industry in its tracks, didn't it? And us and the couples, it's really given couples a bit of freedom to kind of play around with how things can be done and what options there are, and yeah, not doing things that you don't particularly want to do. You don't have to do any of it other than get legally married at some point. So yeah, it's the freedom to kind of do what's important to them, which I think is a great thing that's come out of COVID for sure.
I love the idea that togetherness has become a trend, and I've noticed in the conversation panel, people are sharing trends they're spotting too. Just make sure that when you type your message in, you select that it goes to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see it. It could be really interesting to see what trends people are picking up as they go. And Nina, how about you? Are there any trends that you've been spotting in the weddings you've been doing so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think Sarah covered some of the really big ones, which was that very relaxed feel. Like family feasting for catering is huge. Like everyone wants everything served in the middle, everyone helping themselves, and that just kind of like Sunday lunch kind of family feasting, good vibe where everyone can kind of dig in, I think is really important now. And I think also with the traditions ones, it's really hit and miss now. I think whereas we were quite restricted at the beginning of the beginning of the year, traditions became really important because we were so limited on what we can do. So people have actually now researched them and looked into them and said, you know, why am I doing this? What are we doing it for? And therefore they've now seen the reasoning behind some of them they like, some of them they don't. If anyone's interested, by the way, I looked up the other day why we cut the cake. Not great for females. So things like that I think either people are really they've got time on their hands. Some people for next year have had 2, 3, 4 years planning their wedding because they've postponed so much. So not only has their budget gone up and they've now invested in other things that, you know, they hadn't originally been able to do, but also they're actually saying, right, what do we want? What have we had time to really look into, and what do we do? So the details of the day become quite important. And actually, one of the big trends I'm seeing, which isn't a wedding trend as such, is more something along the lines of couples really investing in their suppliers now. Like, it's really important that they know you, they love you, they want to know so much about you that you're almost a guest at their wedding now. And I think that's become seriously important for my couples. I've really felt that, especially this year and next year. Like, they're egging me on, they're cheering me on, they're championing us, which is something I think is an amazing thing that's come out of COVID, and I hope continues forever.
I think that is something that's a really valid point. People got to know their suppliers, their venues, you know, the vendors, as not just a business there to serve a purpose for them. It was the people behind the business they got to know as well. And yeah, I will be thrilled if that tradition continues long into the future. And Rahita, how are you seeing things on kind of the Asian wedding side of things? What trends are emerging there?
I think definitely what Nina said in terms of suppliers. I think brides and grooms are really appreciative of us now, and they know what it potentially has been like if they had gone for somebody that they didn't get to know, or somebody that they might not have, you know, kind of been out there before with a reputation. So what I'm finding now is, like, especially with our services, is that, you know, it is very much like, you have done somebody's wedding, I want you approach, rather than before, where it was it was always price driven. And that's probably a better way of saying it, actually, sorry. So yeah, before it was always price driven, where now, you know, price doesn't come into it till right at the end. It's kind of, what can I do for you and how can I work with you? And again, a lot of people want the best suppliers, because I guess obviously through COVID, you know, we have lost suppliers, or, you know, things have happened which they've heard, because there was a lot of forums around during COVID where people got to talk. So definitely finding that with suppliers, they want the best. And if you have worked with somebody as well, they 100% take your advice and they're like, I want to go with them. I don't care if somebody's recommended somebody else. Knowing that, you know, that DJ gives me such a comfort. So we're definitely finding that. Trends wise, I think for us, it's a lot more been the ceremony and cultural aspects. There has been some times where the bride and groom have just said, we're not going to do that. And I have said to them, trying to be on mutual ground, are you sure that your parents are going to be okay with you not doing that? And, you know, just pass it by them first. But we have been doing a lot more of, you know, whereby, you know, their dad and their stepdad walk them down. We don't traditionally do that, but we have been. You know, we've had some where it's a Hindu wedding and they don't actually have a priest, they have a celibate, and she does poems, and, you know, we're seeing that side, we're seeing different sides to it, and they want to make it more intimate and more personal. And also they're letting people know that they've been together for a long time, and they're sharing that with everybody as well, where before they wouldn't have shared that normally.
And Sarah, do you think it's fair to say, sort of on Hitched, obviously we see such a broad spectrum of couples and businesses, that kind of the ceremony has taken a bit of a lift in all this, and, you know, celebrants are becoming a more popular choice?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes back to that personalization, doesn't it? It's just, people want to have you know, every element of the day, they want it to reflect them. And even the ceremony, you know, that's something that's a very important, you know, point of that whole process. You know, that's why we're doing it. You know, we're getting married, we want to let people know that we plan to spend the rest of our lives together. So that's a really, really key moment. So I think, you know, celebrants allow people to be so personal, and you can literally, you know, you can make it whatever you want, and you can have it, you know, and you know, that place that means something to you. So I think that's something that we have definitely noticed that's become very important to couples.
And I think it works on the business side as well. People are putting themselves at the front of their business a lot more as well. I mean, I touched on it briefly earlier, but you are getting to know the person behind the business, not just a service that you can engage with for your wedding day. I love it personally. It's so nice to be able to see what this industry truly is, which is so many small businesses just helping to build big days. It's really, really wonderful. And I suppose probably going to come to Nina with this one first. I know we said we weren't going to talk too much about guidance, but sorry. What do you think it's going to be like over the winter and the next year? Do you think we'll come to a point where we need more guidance, or have we proven that we are, you know, self-sufficient and we can look after ourselves and host safe events?
I think that's the thing. We have proven, and there's been no major headlines of weddings being super spreaders or anything like that. And we've proven that we're a very sensible and responsible industry. And we are still talking to government. We are still showing them that, and they're still interested in what we're doing. So the eyes aren't off us. We still have to continue making sure that, you know, we're doing as we do, and that we still encourage people to lateral flow before coming to the wedding and things like that, where they feel comfortable doing it, and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not gone away. But the pressure is not on us now to prove ourselves. We've done that. I think that for the time being, it's safe to say that at the moment, there are no plans for any further restrictions to come in. You know, that can always change. We've got to see how things go. But currently, at the moment, as it stands, you know, we're good.
And how, Ashley and Rahita, how are you finding it in terms of like health and safety on wedding days? Are you still seeing that this is at the forefront of people's minds? Rahita, do you want to? Sorry.
That's fine, yeah.
Honestly, no. I think, like, you know, everybody's been away for so long. They haven't seen they haven't seen loved ones in such a long time. Don't get me wrong, we're still putting precautions in there, and we're advising them to put in precautions there, whether it's a table of masks and hand sanitizer, or just have something printed out that says, you know, could you keep your distance? But I think because, like Nina says, we haven't been in the headline, we're not big classed as super spreaders, and there hasn't been any big stories, and obviously there are other events that are going on quite openly. Yeah, I think especially, yeah, for our I think the largest wedding that we've done is about 350, and the people that didn't want to be present for the reception just quietly went off home, and then everybody else stayed. But yeah, there's not much, you know, precautions that are taking place.
It comes down to that personal choice thing, I guess, doesn't it? And Ashley, are you seeing similar, or is it different from the weddings you're working on?
Yeah, so the weddings that I have worked on, I think the one thing that I've definitely noticed is grandparents and elderly relatives. They'll be there for the ceremony, and then they leave, and they choose to leave because they're not comfortable being in, you know, a lot of them were shielding and are probably coming up to the stage where they need boosters quite soon. So that has happened in quite a few of my weddings. But other than that, it's yeah, like as Rahita said, it's just been kind of people like really celebrating and making the most of being able to be back together, and definitely making the most of it. We've done all we can to kind of to keep them safe, and to make sure there is, you know, the gel and masks and lateral flow tests for guests and things beforehand being advised. But yeah, I think the one thing that's definitely changed is the consideration around grandparents or elderly relatives, for sure. And other than that, it seems that everyone else feels responsible enough to make the decision themselves.
Okay, and I'm gonna. Sorry, Nina.
I was going to say, I just think that's it. I think it's down to personal choice and who in your family is vulnerable and things like that, you know, and we have to be considerate of that. But also going back to kind of that whole supplier thing, our couples are also very aware, because hopefully we've drummed it home enough, that it's all about looking after us as well, because we've got to be fit enough to go on to the next wedding. So I know a lot of my couples have been like, Nina, just so you know that, you know, we have asked everyone to do a lateral flow in the morning, and we totally understand if the staff are still wearing masks and things like that. You know, they do appreciate the environment and pressure that we're all in as well, which I think is really lovely. But I mean, I had a wedding last week that had a whole box of lateral flow tests out with a nice little pretty sign in front of it, and they wanted their guests to do one. You know, it's so individual. And I think that so long as people are still semi-conscious of it, I know that, you know, we can go to the shop and see what people's reactions are now, like no one wears masks and things like that. I think so long as we're respectful still of it, then we'll carry on as we are. I think if we become disrespectful of COVID, then that's when we're going to see problems.
I wonder how long it will be till we see people invent personalised lateral flow tests, you know. When's that going to happen? But I'm conscious now, we've been talking for about 40 minutes, so I'm going to ask each of you, and I'm going to work around clockwise again, a big question, and then we will take some questions from the attendees. And again, if you have a question you want us to discuss, just make sure you select all panelists and attendees. And my big question is, considering what we've all been through over the past 18 months and what we've learned and what we can see coming into the year ahead, how are you feeling about the wedding industry and how it is now? And what are your big hopes for 2022? And Sarah, I'm going to come to you first, just because you are the next one in my little clockwise screen.
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. I just think, you know, the last year and a half has taught us so much about, you know, making sure that we kind of look after each other. I think that's been one of the nicest things that we've really seen on Hitched, is how much couples and venues and suppliers have worked together and just shown so much respect and just, you know, care for each other to make sure these weddings can still take place. That's really, I think, one of the nicest sort of things that come out of the, you know, the pandemic, which it was such a stressful time, but to see venues and suppliers, you know, really going above and beyond to look after their couples, and vice versa, you know, couples, you know, making sure they were keeping in touch with their venues and suppliers. That was something that was just, you know, really nice for us to see. And, you know, we touched on it already, but yeah, just sort of seeing that going into next year and have that close relationship with their venues and their suppliers is going to be something that's going to be, you know, definitely something we're going to see more of. And yeah, and just that personalization. I think now couples aren't afraid to just ditch trends if it doesn't, traditions, if it doesn't mean something to them, and just really make that wedding day unique. And that's been really, really exciting for us to see on Hitched, you know, to see this rise in traffic around all these different trends. It's been really nice that couples, they're not worried about, you know, having to stick to that traditional day. They want to have something that's unique to them. So I think we're just going to see so much more of that next year.
Yeah, I think that's something I find a lot fielding the messages, particularly on Instagram. People are like, do I have to do this? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. All you have to do is sign your paperwork. Everything else is entirely up to you. And Ashley, what are your views on my massive question there?
I think 2022 is going to be kind of, it's a great year for the industry and a great year for couples, I think, as well, where it's like we're like turbocharged, you know, at the moment. I am really close to kind of being at capacity for next year as well. But one thing that I really, really, really am enjoying, like exploring with my couples, is kind of breaking away from the things that they want, but how we source them and where they come from. There's a huge push around, which I think is really important, and it's a conversation for another day, but around sustainability and weddings and kind of the environmental impact of them. And there's a huge, there's quite a few retailers now who you can rent your bridal dresses from, you can rent your bridesmaids dresses from, you know. So this is not set up within the wedding industry. This is very much kind of the retail industry, and with an arm in kind of bridal, but exploring those options. It's given people more options, which I think they'll still go to their bridal boutiques and get their dress and spend as much money as they did before, but then they're looking at rentals for the evening. They're looking at changing their makeup away from having a bridal look during the day and having an evening look. There's lots of different things that they are they're looking to change, and they're kind of there's a place for the kind of the traditional elements of it, but then wherever they can, they're looking to infuse their personalities and trends and just different options. And I think it makes next year a really exciting year for sure.
And I should say, we talk about next year like it's far off in the future. It's not that far away. Actually, less than 3 months to go till Christmas. I'm sorry, but it is. It's very soon. And Rahita, how are you feeling about it all?
I think probably, I think Sarah and Ashley have both touched on both of it, but I think definitely suppliers and the respect. Again, I have felt this year a lot more, you know, they understand what we do, and I really hope that kind of carries on throughout not just next year but the years to come as well. You know, it's so lovely that when we do talk to the brides, they're actually telling us our job description, where before we were always having to kind of explain what we do. So I really hope that kind of stays. And definitely, again, about building the right team. I'm very much always about building the right team for the day, because I think it just sets a very good, strong foundation for everybody to work really well together. And then I think probably individuality. Again, I've seen it a lot, especially coming through the Asian culture, not, you know, breaking away from traditions in a nice, respectful way, and having a bit more of a personal touch. And that would be really nice to see that carrying on, and, you know, not to stay to the norm of, like Ash said, like, you know, whites, and even when it's colours or personalizations, or even the days, for instance, because it just makes that every wedding's very individual to that person. So definitely I think individuality, and just like suppliers, and the respect for us as well.
Nina, one of the really interesting things you said throughout this was about one of the traditions being not actually that great for women in its roots. And I think actually there are quite a lot of wedding traditions that started out as not so great for women in their roots. And you obviously see so much on the day. You're there with these couples all day long. So how's it been looking for you, and what are your hopes for 2022? Oh, you're on mute. Shouldn't have to say this to you, you're the Zoom queen.
I think one of the things that actually really interesting about the whole pandemic is the fact that we're a very strong and resilient industry, and that's going to continue into next year, because I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely felt this year I've just been working very, very hard to make up the loss, to pay back the bounce back loans, to do all those kind of things. So actually next year is going to be just as busy. There's still lots of postponements into next year, but I've got the time to plan, and because like service is going to go up. I feel the quality of service that we're going to be doing, not that it's been any less this year, but we're going to have the time to actually be less exhausted, plan for our businesses properly. We're going to be able to market at the same time as actually running weddings, you know, working on the business as well as in the business. And so therefore I feel that next year actually the industry is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, because we have got the time to actually plan to run our businesses as well as working in our businesses, whereas we didn't have that this year. It was like, for us, like, okay, you can do weddings now, off you go, bye. And so I'm very excited to see how strong we get, but also with seeing so many weddings and being very much on the day, I do see a lot of the things in terms of traditions and what's important to people, and they've been touched on. You know, Ashley saying about more sustainability coming into weddings. You know, I had literally a wedding on Saturday who were really conscious about the wine on the table, and they're like, it never gets drunk fully. So they had a plan in place for how to, you know, properly make sure that the wine didn't get wasted. Not that they were being tight, they just didn't want it going to waste.
Should have invited me.
Right? I was like, it's okay, guys, I'll take half the bottles home. It's not a problem. So I think that's a really important thing that we'll see, you know, growing and is needed within this industry. We're quite wasteful, especially the higher up you go as well, the more high end you get, the more that money isn't too much of an issue when it comes to it, the more wasteful it gets. So I think that's going to be something that definitely grows. And then traditions is very hit and miss. It's very hit and miss, I think. It's something that people are now understand that they don't do, but some people are actually like, this is the one time in my life that everyone's going to stare at me kind of cake. I'll come back to that one because I just looked at it so recently. By the way, it's about women becoming submissive to the man. So yeah, enjoy that. And then, I think it's just going to evolve. I think everything that we're doing, everything that we've touched on, it's going to evolve, it's going to grow. And I feel that I'm excited because us as an industry are going to be stronger to handle it.
It all sounds so positive, and it's been so wonderful to be joined by you guys today to discuss this. I noticed a question's come in through the Q&A, which I'm just going to touch on really quickly, and we'll take a couple more, but I'm conscious time's getting on. So somebody, Sean Belton, has asked, do we think there are going to be issues getting clients venues in 2022? She is worried about taking on clients who can't find venues with availability.
Can I jump in here? Sean, I think I sat next to your husband at a wedding the other day when I was a guest, just putting it out there, really weird. But also, I think that you are going to have to be careful with venues because they're still dealing with postponements. There are still 2020 couples who were then postponed to the beginning of this year, who then had to postpone again. So that you're on your third or fourth postponement. So for venues, and I'm sitting in a venue right now, this is not my lounge, it's a bridal suite, guys. I think for venues, they're definitely dealing with a busier diary still, which is having an impact and a ripple effect across the board. So it's not that you shouldn't be worried about taking clients. I think you just need to make sure that you fully scope out their brief first, see what kind of venues they're looking for in the locations, and do a bit of homework around that before overcommitting.
Okay, and then there was a question for Rahita from Siobhan, which said, you mentioned building the right team. How do you go about building a good team and retaining that team?
Only from obviously personally, it would have to be the years of being in the industry. And I know that's probably not like the most simplest answer. I've been in the industry for 7 years, so I've kind of worked with very different people. And once you've done a wedding with, for an example, like a particular DJ, the way that he helps you, the way that you work together as a team, you form that bond. And he's going to be that person that you're then going to recommend and work with in the future, where, if you get a supplier that potentially you don't get along with, or you have different views, and it becomes harder to work with, you potentially might not work with them or recommend them. So that's what I meant about building the right team. So networking is a very good one as well. And, we all know we have to do it to stay at the top of our game in this industry. So networking, also talk to other people. So again, I've had couples that have come to me with half their team already built. I go out there and I ask other people, have you heard of this person? What are they like to work with? So you can get to understand them a little bit. So when you do arrive on the day, you've got a little bit of background information about them.
And Nina, Ashley, I don't suppose if you have anything you want to chip into that. I don't think any more questions have come in, so we can just make sure we answer this one as thoroughly as possible.
Yeah, I think building on what Rahita said, I think it's really important to work with different people. I think it strengthens us as individuals. And I think it's, you get to see how different suppliers do things. And I think one of the things sometimes the wedding industry is we can kind of push ourselves a little bit more, is kind of photographers tend to stick with photographers and they all network, and florists stick with florists and they all network, and planners stick with planners and they all network. And actually that doesn't really help us, especially last year. Photographers they were busy, kind of some of them who developed a kind of a micro wedding package. Not that would be it wouldn't help them in terms of all the postponements for bigger wedding days, but I can't speak for Nina or Rahita, but I didn't work on one wedding last year, one wedding day at all, because none of my clients are the kind of clients who wanted to have a micro wedding. So I think sometimes when you network with different people and you constantly push yourself to work with different people, whether that's in a collaborative project to start with, and then you work together on a wedding, because when you're kind of suggesting somebody for someone's wedding you haven't worked with before, that's a lot of responsibility. But I think it helps to kind of broaden your horizons on how we're all impacted, on how wedding days work for all of us, because each individual supplier does things slightly differently. So I see it as a huge strength to have different teams on different days based on the client, who they are and what they want to create. So yeah, I think it's a huge positive, actually, as Rahita said, to kind of network and build your supplier team that way, for sure.
I'm thinking, and what I'm taking from this, Sarah, is that we need to host a big Hitch networking event for everybody, and maybe we need to look for some event coordinators and planners to help us do this. Well, thank you so much for this, guys. It's been really great to have you all here. We've done 55 minutes now. We should probably stop talking. But thank you so much for joining us, and thanks everyone for watching. And we have recorded this, so we should be able to share it later. We also do have a PDF. The marketing team will kill me if I don't mention this. We do have a PDF for those that have attended, that you can get all the information that we've discussed and some tips about Hitch for Business and things like that. So we will make sure that gets shared with you, and please make sure you've joined our Facebook group as well for industry people, and we'll be posting it there too. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.